Next one is Lab 20, Enthalpy changes solution, how chemists can use properties of solute to predict if the enthalpy change of solution will be exo or endothermic. Make sure you've read this lab first before you watch this video. Solute is a solid, and we're going to dissolve it into water, and that's going to be a solution. And you're going to see what happens to the temperature. So you have to plan this lab yourself. And you, again, if you read the lab, you'll see how to do that. So everyone in class is reading the lab same as you. They're not getting to see this setup, you are, so you kind of get a little bit more help than the kids in class do. So you can see how I'm doing this. I'm just going to do 2 chemicals for you, and you have to come up with your rule, write it all out on your planning sheet, and email me for the sample data. I'll give you all the data, and then you have to write your CER. So this is potassium chloride. It's one of the chemicals listed that you have to use. I have a gram of it, so you can see what it looks like before. Here's the temperature of my water, and I just have my water in the spring stand so the cup doesn't fall over. And I'm going to put the potassium chloride into the cup, and you can see what happens to the temperature. And we do want to record the highest or lowest temperature that we see. And you won't have to record anything because I am going to give you sample data that you're going to use to write your CER. You just need to email me saying you're absent and you need the sample data so you can write up your CER. Okay. So again, you need to read this lab. You need to figure out a rule of how to predict if something's going to be endo or exothermic. So we can see that when potassium chloride dissolves in water, the temperature goes down. Okay, so it's getting colder. If I was touching it, it would feel cold. And if you read your lab, you should know what that means. So it looks like our coldest temperature for this is going to be 16.9. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing, but with a different chemical. This time I have lithium chloride. Again, it's one of the chemicals, if you've read your lab, that you're going to use for the experiment. They have a bunch of data there in that table that you need to look at. You'll be looking at that data on your table to figure out some kind of rule to predict if the chemicals are going to be endo or exothermic. So if you want to pause this video, look at that data table and see if you can come up with your rule now. How are you going to know if it's endo or exo? So you need to be able to decide any of those materials that they give you on page 322 in lab 20. You need to be able to decide if those are going to be endo or exothermic when you dissolve them in water. And so if you look on page 324, it gives you a whole data table with the chemicals. It gives you their enthalpy of dissociation or their heat of dissociation in kilojoules per mole. And it gives you their heat of hydration in kilojoules per mole. So the heat of dissociation, kilojoules per mole, that's the energy needed to break them apart. And the heat of hydration, that's the energy needed when they form products. And so you need to be looking at that data table on 324 to come up with your rule. All right, so this is lithium chloride. The temperature of my water is 20.2 degrees to start. Lithium chloride, it's more powdery. It's not as crystalline as the other one. So I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to stir with the thermometer, which you should never do in chemistry, but we are. And you can see what's happening to the temperature right away. Temperature is going up. Okay, so again, this is lithium chloride, and our temperature is going up. And again, we'll just record our highest temperature that we see once the heat of the reaction is done. And then we need to use this data, and you need to use the data that I'm going to email to you once you ask me to make a rule that I can predict any chemical if it's going to be endo or exothermic. So it looks like our highest was 36 or 37, and this was getting hotter. again, you need to plan the slab. You need to fill out your whole planning guide. You need to email that to me with your rule. I will give you the sample data. You need to apply your rule to the sample data I've given you and do a CER. Now, if your rule isn't matching the sample data I give you, you're going to want to come up with a different rule. It's okay if you don't have it exactly right on your planning guide, but when you write your CER, your claim is going to be your rule.